Hey guys, it's Victoria. Welcome back to FemmeHead. Today we're going to be talking about another thing that we should all be tracking throughout our cycle, and that is our libido, our desire, whatever you want to call it. Today I'm going to talk about just a quick overview of some of the changes that you may or may not experience during each phase, the highs and the lows, and then I want to share mostly just resources today, some of my favorite books, and a new online resource that I have been introduced to. Beducated has a online library of courses spanning so many different topics, but their tagline is the sex ed you wish you'd had, and I think that is perfectly fitting. They invited me to take some of the courses and try it out and share my thoughts with you, so I'm going to do that a little bit later in the video, and then also share some books that I think would be helpful for those of you out there looking to learn more about this topic, because I know I constantly am. I am a sponge for information and knowledge, and I love to learn. I never want to stop educating myself, and this is just very in line with learning more about our bodies, learning more about our cycles and what goes on in here and here, and I think it just can benefit everyone. So starting off with just like the peaks in our libido, everyone is different. There are so many variables to our libido, our desire. As we all know, there's so many things that impact it. The highest peak in libido is naturally right around ovulation, when our body is most fertile, primed to create life, to do the sole job of our menstrual cycle. Ovulation is when estrogen and testosterone are the highest, and so naturally our libido is the highest around ovulation. There is another smaller peak during menstruation, actually. I've heard from a lot of people that they have a spike in libido during their periods. And then most find that their libidos are at its lowest at the end of their luteal phase, right before the period starts, when progesterone is at its highest. It's all kind of ironic because obviously when you're trying to conceive and trying to make a baby, your natural ebbs and flows of your libido line up really well to when you want to be having sex. But if you're trying to do the opposite and not conceive a baby, your libidos don't always line up, because as you know, after you've confirmed ovulation and there's no egg present anymore and you're in your luteal phase, that is like the safest time to have sex when you're using FEMME's natural birth control. But turns out that is when our libido is at its lowest. So, of course, those on certain birth control methods don't really have an ebb and flow to their libido because they don't have a cycle. Also, I've heard from so many people that hormonal birth control completely wipes out their libido. I definitely think that hormonal birth control messed with my libido and all of that too. Hormonal birth control, yay, another win. Pregnancy also has an impact on your libido. For some, it's a very positive impact, and for some people, and depending on where you are in your pregnancy, it just can completely knock it out. I remember both times in my third trimester, I was like, deuces, nothing's happening. Can't feel anything, it's not going anywhere. It's all unique to your experience, but pregnancy has effect on it. And then many breastfeeding moms notice a dip in their libido. Breastfeeding suppresses ovulation often, not always, and therefore you have lower levels of estrogen. And so yeah, breastfeeding moms, you might notice that you don't have much of a libido, if any. And not only just because you're breastfeeding, but because you have a newborn baby and your body's healing and so many other things. I'm a big believer in the power of education, and I just want to put a thought into your mind. Who do we go to when we have questions about libido or our own libido? What did we learn about it growing up? What did our parents teach us? What were we taught about it in school? I'm gonna guess a whole lot of nothing. So we were never given positive, healthy information surrounding sexuality, libido, desire, pleasure, any of that. I don't know about you, but the message was always, don't. You'll die, you'll get pregnant, and the world will explode. That's basically the message that we are given, especially as females. So this is where our job comes in, of educating ourselves. I feel like as an adult, I've learned so many things, I've discovered so many things that I just sit and wonder why weren't we taught this in school? Have you ever charted your libido over a cycle? I know it's not something that I normally do, but just getting into more detailed charting recently, it's one of the things that I've started charting, and it is very interesting to see the ebbs and flows. And so just like with irritability, acne, bloating, headaches, you know when it's gonna happen, you know when to expect it, and just kind of realizing, oh, okay, that makes sense. When I'm in my luteal phase, I'm just not in the mood. What is your normal? What is your ebb and flow? And I think that's a great place to start. The next step is to find resources and places that you trust and feel comfortable with, where you can start educating yourself, whether that's, a therapist if you have things that you need to work through, which I'm sure all of us do, whether that's books, online courses, which I'll get into. I'm going to start with Beducated, and then I'll share some of my books to end today's video. But like I said earlier, I was recently introduced to Beducated, the sex ed you wish you'd had. And it has a little something for everyone, whether it's super vanilla or super not suitable for work. And it's those things that we've all wondered about when we've questioned our head, but we've been we don't want to Google it. We don't, necessarily feel comfortable asking our friends about it. And so it's nice to have a resource where it's okay, these are experts in these areas. They know what they're talking about. They have experience working with hundreds of couples or people or whatever it may be. I trust what they're saying and their take on things. I'm currently working my way through a course called The Wanting. It's by Dr. Juliana Hauser, and it's all about working through our own libido and desire. Hence the topic of today's video. It's something that I've dabbled in the past. I've read books about it. I think I've made at least one video about it, but I don't feel like I've ever gotten anywhere to where I feel like I understand it, or I feel confident in my understanding of it, or, dramatically improved my relationship to my own libido. And just this one course alone, I have learned so much. She has said certain things that have clicked and resonated and made me go, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. Instead of using the word libido, she talks about it as desire, and how desire is this energy within us. It's not something that happens to us. It's not something that we do to someone else. It is for us. It is this power that we have within us. It is like a fire where we can tend to it, and we can, add kindling, or we can let it burn out completely. And just her perspective on it and how she breaks it down is very insightful, and it very hopeful of okay, it's not something that you either have or you don't have. It's something that we all have to work at, we all have to nurture, and it's been a very insightful course. I find myself taking lots of notes, going back and highlighting certain parts of my notes. It's a nice course to start with, I guess, out of all the different topics. She takes you through each lesson topic with videos, and then she gives you journal prompts, which I think are very helpful because journaling has always been a form of therapy for me. And so she gives you journaling prompts to work through, and it takes you some time, and it makes you dig into stuff that maybe you've avoided before or never have even thought about. You start connecting the dots, and you're oh, that's interesting that I feel that way, because this is how, it was always talked about growing up. Digging into the nitty gritty, I find, is always the most beneficial thing when it comes to growth. Like I said, I have had countless aha moments. Sometimes it's nice to have someone who's an expert explain things to you and share through her experience working with other couples and other people, rather than you having to sift through the mountains of information out there and try to figure it out yourself. Sometimes it's just nice to learn from an expert. They've given me a code, FemmeHead. You can get 70% off a yearly pass with that code. And then also, if you don't want to commit to that yet, you can try any of the courses out for free for a day, like a free trial sort of thing. There's just a little bit for everyone, and that's Beducated. There's a lot more about it. I'm excited to check out what other courses they have, maybe dive a little deeper. But let's go into some books that I wanted to share with you today. I don't have all of them. I like to lend books out, and then I don't always get them back. If you want to learn how to chart your cycle, I have a course, Chart Your Cycle. Always linked down below. Taking Charge of Your Fertility is the Fam Bible. You can get it on Amazon. I link it down below. I'll link all of these books down below. Woman Code and In the Flow are by the same author, Elisa. I haven't pronounced her name right. She's fabulous. In the Flow is probably my favorite of the two, just because I'm not to the point of eating in sync with my cycle. But this book is great for anyone with endometriosis, PCOS, hormonal imbalances that need drastic changes. In the Flow, unlock your hormonal advantage and revolutionize your life. This chapter is get more of what you want in sex and relationships. This is a great book. Another one to do with hormonal imbalances, peer-to-peer manuals. If you are intrigued about eating in sync with your cycle, a Woman Code. And then also another one is the Happy Hormone Guide. And this one is a plant-based guide. This one is not vegan or plant-based or anything. Oh, another one, I have a couple books, but I think I only checked that one out from the library, but I have this one, it's called Cunt, and then also I have one that my mom actually has called Pussy. Those are both very good books. Like, if that makes you uncomfortable, me just saying that, like, you should read these books. Connecting to what's happening in our body, learning about what's happening, learning why certain things happen within our body helps it all make sense, and learning what happens during each phase and trying to live as in sync with our cycle as we can makes such a difference. That is what I have to say today about libido and educating ourselves. A great place to start, if you're not going to do anything else, is just start charting it. And then if you want to start dig a bit more into educating yourself, I will forever be a big believer in books. I love just having just being able to go and stand in front of my bookshelves today and be like, okay, what books are relevant to this topic? And I could pull out several. But if you want to learn a bit more sex ed sort of stuff, their course library it's not overwhelming. It's the perfect amount. There's a little bit of something for everyone. I'm working my way through this course right now, but there's several others I want to take, or others I'm just curious about oh, I wonder what that's about. I wonder what they say about that, because there's certain sex topics that you're I'm definitely not gonna Google that, or maybe don't feel comfortable talking to people about, and you just want to figure it out by yourself first. It's a great resource. And it's very, very helpful, and I'm very excited to learn more. That is today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you give Beducated a try. Check out those books. Start charting your libido. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.